Sometimes the simplest objects enlarged into a grand scale can be the most beautiful. These close-up citrus fruits are a beautiful example of just that. Denis Vojtkovich is a professor of art studies, and he's a contemporary artist, which means he's still alive and working right now. As we take a look at some of his large-scale oil paintings of fruit slices and flowers that are hyper-realistic. It's amazing to imagine these as paintings, but I love the way that his artwork is up close and simple. In this project, drawing fruit from observation is a big part of the lesson. With the handout that's provided, it'll hopefully help you as you begin working with citrus fruits that are naturally symmetrical. Let's take a moment and get started on drawing out your citrus. Today, as you get started, grab a circle at your table, trace around it, and put your name on the other side. This observational drawing, the close-up of citrus fruit, might be really helpful as you get started. You'll notice that I'll pencil in very lightly just some sections that I can use to guide my drawing to make the wedges of the fruit. The paper that I just showed you has the same fruit, and it's just a visual so that it helps me draw from observation. It helps me draw the wedges that I can actually see in some of these cut-up fruits. Hopefully it'll help guide you as we looked at some of Denis Vojtkovich's artwork, and it might give us as inspiration as we begin. Think about what color you want your fruit to be. You'll notice on my plate I've got some green, white, a small, very small amount of yellow and blue. I was thinking to myself, my very first step is painting with values, grabbing a color that I want for my fruit and my white, and I like to call this a double dip technique. You'll notice that when you grab your paint, you should be mixing colors onto your paper. Dip the paintbrush into two paint colors, such as green and white, and mix them on the paper to create a creamy light green, or whatever color you use, yellow, orange, whatever color that you choose. I use my pencil lines nice and thick so that when I paint over it, I can still see some of those designs. And the other thing that I'm doing is I'm going to start using different values into my project right now. So you'll notice that I'm going back into the dark green, or the regular color green, and adding just a small amount of white to it so that you're going to see the different wedges into my paper. This is an important step, that it's nice that I did not start mixing my green and white all together so that it's all one color. In this part of the project, I would like to be able to see a range of values between your greens and your whites. Try to make as many different values that you can in this citrus drawing, or painting, I should say. Now remember that yellow and blue that I put onto the paper, onto my paper plate? I grabbed a little bit of yellow and blue for a little bit more change in my green value. I was looking at the analogous colors in the color wheel, the colors that are close to each other, that are neighbors to one another, and I'm adding on just a little bit more highlights of white. Now, once I've got that base color, look at what I'll do with my blue. Notice that I never washed out my brush. When I dip my brush into the blue, just a little bit like so, I'm going to be putting my darker green values on the edge. You'll notice how the blue doesn't really look blue anymore. I'm taking the blue and I'm mixing it in with my green. I'm doing this all very quickly so that the paintbrush is still wet, and I'm dipping it and smearing the colors together right into the paint. That's the whole tip about the double dip painting technique, is that I don't want my colors to mix before it gets to the paper. I want them to mix right on the paper so that I can see streaks of different colors instead of it all being subdued into one color. Try that. Try mixing your colors, but don't mix so much onto the paper that it's all one tone or all one color. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to start working in my background using the same technique. Grabbing some white, grabbing some red, and these are complementary colors. Complementary colors are opposite sides of the color wheel. They're going to stand out most vibrant next to each other. So now that I've done this and I've added my red plus my white, and I'm coloring and painting in my background, hopefully you can see that I'm never mixing out my brush and I'm never stirring the two colors together. We want that sketchy look of here's some areas of white, here's some areas of red, that double dip technique, so that it's not one solid color. I'm trying to be careful not to do too much mixing, but instead being able to see streaks of color. Do you see how there's still a pile of white and there's still a pile of red? They should never be mixing so that it's just one solid color. Now let's take a moment and let our project dry. Now that your project is dry, take a black oil pastel and please go over each one of those wedges that you drew in pencil. As you take your black oil pastel, go around it, you can see that the different values are really starting to stand out and make this project look complete. I just love this step. It really gives it a finished touch. Second version, only this time it's sped up quite a bit. Just a moment to review all of the steps that we've done. Start out in pencil and draw out your close-up citrus. In this example, I am outlining it in black so that when I take the colors and make them lighter, the value changes. You could probably be able to see underneath the paint because it's outlined in black. So if this is helpful, try adding on in that step. Again, you'll notice that my paint set right beside me, I'm just doing the double dip technique. I'm not mixing my white with my yellow. I'm double loading up the brush with those two colors and letting them mix right onto the paper. It's going to give you a little bit more of a sketchy, painterly look for our end in mind. Now once I've got my lightened value, my yellow plus white, you'll notice that I put some orange right beside the yellow. This is going to give me that darker value change into my work. Once again, you'll notice I never washed out my paintbrush. I'm just adding some orange into the paper and letting the streaks of orange and yellow mix right onto the paper. Can you see that brush? How it's got colors that are just loaded up onto the brush, and then I'm smearing the colors onto the paper without any mixing. This is what gives your painting more of a painterly look. I love this part of the project. It's what really sets it off. Now, once again, for your background, start thinking about what color is complementary. The opposite side of yellow is purple. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another sheet of paper or paper or plate and start adding in my purple and white for my background. Again, work with values for your background color. Now that I've got my purple and my white with a clean brush, I'm going to start mixing those colors into the background, filling up the paper with my complementary color set.